Welcome to Sunset Drives, a new video series I'm trying out where I'll pick a topic, grab a car, go for a nice drive, and have a casual conversation meant to be very informal. Sometimes the drives will be more scenic than others. Right now we are currently in Arizona with this 2025 Corvette Stingray convertible, so luckily we have some nice roads to go for a evening sunset drive. Other times the drive might look a little less inspiring, but the whole point is the conversation topic. It'll be across everything from cars to business, career, life. I'll do a Q&A. Today's topic is very appropriate given we are in a Corvette. Actually, I am in a convertible Corvette and the weather is still pretty nice, so I'm going to go ahead and put the top down. So slow down, press and hold the top button. It'll drop. Ah, yes. It's currently probably cold and snowy back in Michigan, but I have fled to the desert of Arizona, so it is quite a bit nicer. It's actually very sunny and warm today. We've got a Corvette Stingray, which is perfect for the topic of today's video. I want to talk about all the different variants of the C8 Corvette that Chevy should do. That would be awesome. This is all purely speculation. None of this is factual. It's just for fun conversation and for some pondering. There's currently 4 iterations of the C8 Corvette. We have the regular Stingray, like the one we are in right now, with an LT2, 495 horsepower, 470 pound-feet of torque. It's available as a coupe or hardtop convertible like we're in right now. You get the Z51 package. Then we step up. There's the Z06 with the absolutely amazing 5.5 liter flat plane crank LT6, 670 horsepower, 8,000 plus RPM redline. Kind of parallel to the Z06, we have the E-Ray, the first time we've ever had an electrified Corvette. It's a hybrid, not a plug-in hybrid, it's just a hybrid for performance, really. It's got a very small battery pack, and it pairs that electric all-wheel drive with the LT2 from the Stingray. So that one is a very different personality from the Z06. And then the 4th variant is the one that I'm very excited for. It kind of broke a lot of records in terms of performance figures. The new ZR1, the C8 ZR1, which shocked the world with 1,064 horsepower, 828 pound-feet of torque, top speed of 233 miles an hour. It's just, the numbers are utterly ballistic. So we currently have those 4 variants, but there's gonna be more. Now the first one is a rumored one that is probably gonna happen. There's been like patent or trademark filings for the name the Zora. There's been rumors of a range-topping Zora model, and it was supposed to combine whatever engine went into the ZR1 with the E-Ray electric all-wheel drive. Again, purely speculation, but if we follow that formula and kind of start filling in the possible spaces in the Corvette lineup, you're kind of just permuting different powertrain combinations, that would bring us to a total power output of 1,224 horsepower, 953 pound-feet of torque, because the E-Ray electric front motor makes 160 horsepower and 125 pound-feet of torque. So assuming they kept that exact same thing with a very small little 1.2 kilowatt-hour battery pack, something like that. It's a very small battery pack. It's almost like a on-the-go nitrous bottle in the E-Ray, right? It's like disperse, add, recharge, go. It doesn't do anything for efficiency. You can kind of shuttle around a little bit in stealth mode for all electric driving, but it is purely for just performance. So if they add that to the ZR1, we'd have a over 1,200 horsepower electric all-wheel drive twin turbo flat plane crank top of the line Corvette. Now, originally when those rumors first started coming about, I was like, the ZR1's going to be 800 horsepower, and then this would be 1,000 horsepower, right? Kind of gives you a nice hierarchy step, going from the 670 horsepower Z06 to the ZR1 and then to the Zora. But then the ZR1 came out with 1,000 horsepower. You're like, wait, what? That's where the top of the line is going to be. So to imagine them doing even a more powerful version is almost just, it's incredible to even think about. But could they do it? I mean, probably. How much faster is it going to get? 0 to 60 might get a little bit faster, but if I recall correctly, the electric front motor in the E-Ray doesn't contribute much as the speeds climb. It just is not able to. So I mean, the ZR1, once it gets to 200 miles an hour, probably even in the Zora form, right, the electric motor wouldn't be contributing that much more to it. But around lower speed turns on a track, that all-wheel drive traction might help. So this like hypothetical Zora could be a thing. It could be absolutely ballistic. It would probably be very, very expensive. It'd have to be well over $200,000. Even though the ZR1 pricing came in at like $175 base, which is honestly an insane amount of car for the money. So the Zora, I think, is maybe I'll give it a 60% shot of happening that will actually get this range-topping model, a true halo model for the Corvette lineup. There's no precedence for it before. We've had Z06s, we've had ZR1 before. Now the next one I'm going to bring up as a hypothetical that would be really cool to see is a Z06 hybrid. If you took the Z06 flat plane crank V8 and gave it, again, the E-Ray front motor, the electric all-wheel drive, you would be given essentially, I call it the poor man's 918 Spider. My friend Shay, who is also a Z06 owner, has been very infatuated with this idea. So that naturally aspirated V8, which doesn't make that much torque, right? It's 460 pound-feet of torque. The Z06 engine actually makes less torque than this Stingray. The Stingray makes 470 pound-feet of torque. But if you pair it with the electric motor, you would get a combined output of 830 horsepower and 585 pound-feet of torque. You still have the naturally aspirated scream of the LT6. You get a bit more torque, all-wheel drive traction. That could be cool. What would we call it? My hypothetical name would be the Z-Ray. That could be kind of cool, right? You're combining E-Ray and Z06 to make it the Z-Ray. So a poor man's 918 Spider. I don't think it would be that difficult necessarily for them to do it. The challenge would probably be the programming, right? The calibration, the tuning, making sure the transmission and traction and stability systems and everything plays together happily. But if they combine the learnings of the E-Ray and the Z06, the packaging's already there, right? The platform is the same, so you could make it happen. The Z-Ray would be really, really cool to see happen. And it would solve, I mean, the Z06 just doesn't make much low-end torque. So the E-Ray is much better around town driving. Having an electric motor to fill in that lower gap on the flat plane crank would give it kind of a more usable envelope and could be really cool to see. Do I think this is likely? Even less likely than the Zora. I'd give it maybe a 40% chance of happening, 60% chance we probably wouldn't get that. But that would be pretty cool to see, right? Just imagine that. And because we have such a huge step up to the ZR1 in terms of power, right? We went from 670 horsepower to 1,000. I would say there is like a space in the lineup for an 800-ish horsepower variant. The ZR1, I mean, 1,000 horsepower rear-wheel drive is a ton. That is a staggering amount of power and performance. So you could say this theoretical Z-Ray could fit into the lineup and kind of fill it nicely. Next up is a variant that I'm much, much more confident that we'll be getting. I'd say with 80% certainty because there is precedent, and that would be a Grand Sport. We've seen it before in previous generations. They've been very popular. They sell well. They're kind of like a Goldilocks combination, best of both worlds, where you combine the base Stingray engine, so in this case now the LT2, that 6.2 liter naturally aspirated V8, doesn't rev quite as high, but still makes solid power and torque and kind of sounds like that traditional muscle car, American sports car Corvette engine you would expect. You combine that with the wide body treatment of the Z06. So the Z06 and E-Ray get the wider fenders, the wider everything, the center exit exhaust for the Z06 out back. So if we put the Stingray V8 into the wide body, we would get ourselves a C8 Grand Sport. Now, I thought I saw something about a patent filing and a trademark filing for the name, not patent, sorry. But again, there's precedence for the previous one. So with the, what's the point of the wider body? Well, it does look cooler, but also much wider tires, which is good. Track capability, better cooling up front, right? It's a bit wider, intake's more aggressive. So that would give you a option that would be plenty capable on track, maybe a little more solid than the Z06's flat plane crank engine. That's a ragged edge, like hardcore flat plane crank race motor, right? So the LT2 has been more proven over the generations of this architecture existing. The LT6 is brand new. So I think a Grand Sport would be fairly likely. I'm actually getting a little bit chilly, so I'm going to go ahead and slow down and put the top up. Sorry for the random jump. My intent for these videos is to be very fluid and casual. I'm going to try not to do a bunch of editing and cuts. It's just one continuous take. So if I mess up, my brain forgets how to do words, and I don't sound intelligent, I will resist the inner perfectionist urge to start over or trim and edit this video. It's meant to be organic, conversational. My fiance said this almost felt like a podcast, and I was like, well, is a one-person podcast worth listening to? Hopefully. I don't know. We'll see. So the Grand Sport. I could see that being a very, very interesting option. Personally, there's a lot of overlap with the E-Ray. There were some theories that the E-Ray took the place of what the Grand Sport would be because it kind of fulfilled that ethos, right? You have, again, the base engine and the wide body, and they just happen to have the electric all-wheel drive. But it fulfilled the usability envelope of something like the Grand Sport, whereas the Z06 is hardcore track, hard-edged, much more intense. The Z06 is supposed to be the raciest feeling in the lineup. The ZR1 is actually tuned to be a little bit more road-friendly. I remember Taj saying that when we saw the C8 ZR1, that those customers aren't necessarily as hardcore track-focused as the Z06. So E-Ray kind of branched off. I always make the analogy that the Z06 is like a GT3, and the E-Ray is like a Turbo S. Very, very different personality and experiences in the 911 lineup. You wouldn't necessarily cross-shop them. You could have both in a garage, and they both fulfill their own purposes. So the one counter-argument against Grand Sport is there would be a little bit of redundancy between those two in the lineup. But given past precedents and kind of the brand equity in the Grand Sport badge, I would not be surprised if we ended up getting a Grand Sport. Can we take a moment and enjoy this scenery right now? Just take a look at the mountains, the lake. This just does not exist where I live in Michigan. I love coming out here, getting a fun sports car, going for a nice cruise. The sun is setting, which, well, it's kind of the whole point of this video series, right? Sunset drives. And I'm in a C8 Stingray, which I'm very, very familiar with because I personally own the Z06. In case you don't know, I have a C8 Z06. I absolutely adore that car. It is absolutely fantastic. The C8 Stingray, very similar interior. Honestly, all the C8s on the inside are essentially the same. You just have like different badge here on the steering wheel. Even the ZR1 is pretty much the same thing as this. Let's actually, I'll pull over in front of the lake over there. This car is finished in Hysteria Purple, which is a new color for this model year, 2025 model year. There really aren't a ton of changes for this latest model year Corvette. One of the ones that I'm actually very jealous of is the soft close front trunk, so you don't have to leave like fingerprints trying to press down the front trunk. And then there's some slight changes to like the graphics on the infotainment screen, and then it's just colors on the outside and inside. There's a new habanero orange. There was a Z06 at the Chicago Auto Show, which I was just at yesterday, that had the Sebring orange exterior paint and the habanero orange leather, which looked really, really nice. All right, I will trim the video right there because I was fiddling around with the microphone. Ooh, this looks cool as the sun is setting. Yes, beep, beep, beep. The car is running. I have the key in my pocket. Take a look at that. You can see it a lot better when it's sunny and bright out, but this purple has a good amount of flake. Here, as the sun is setting, it's more blurple. There's a lot of blue to it, very dark purple. C8 Stingray, the narrow body. It's got the wing out back. This one is a Z51 with the hardtop convertible. You can hear the rumble of that 6.2 liter V8. All right, back in the car we go. So we talked about the possibility of a Zora, Grand Sport, my self-coined Z-Ray possibility. What else? Well, an all-electric Corvette almost seems inevitable. It's just going to happen. GM was pushing extremely hard into electrification. I say was because there almost seems to have been a recent small pullback from the EV push. I think demand is starting to wane maybe just a little bit. So I'm not sure how aggressive they'll be, and electric sports cars haven't really taken hold. They're quick, they're real quick. EVs, the top tier EVs, you cannot deny that they are mind-blowingly, blisteringly quick. Everything from a Tesla Model S Plaid to the Lucid Air Sapphire to the Porsche Taycan Turbo GT, and then even in like SUVs and trucks. I mean, the Hummer EV is kind of ridiculous for something that's 10,000 pounds to do 60 in 3-point-something seconds. You have the new Rivian quad motor with over 1,000 horsepower, over 1,000 pound-feet of torque that'll do 0 to 60 in 2.5 seconds, quarter mile in 10.5. Like, these are all ridiculous numbers. But you know what EVs don't have? And it's the soul, it's the emotion. And sports cars have to give you the fizz. They have to be exciting. Earlier today, I was driving a Porsche Spyder RS, and that was just so exciting. Oh my gosh, like the emotions you get when revving out that 4-liter flat six at 9,000 RPM. In this Corvette Stingray, you hear that big V8 fire up, the rumble. You give it a couple downshifts, plant your foot. It may not be anywhere near as quick as some of these EV supercars and super sedans and so forth, but you know, it just gives different emotions. So an all-electric Corvette, I still think it is inevitable. The E-Ray maybe was just our little appetizer, a teaser, just to start getting people used to it. And I mean, the E-Ray was met with a little bit of consternation. I had a lot of people commenting, "Oh, this is a tragedy. This cannot be." But people were also commenting that just going to mid-engine like the C8 Stingray was a tragedy, and this is not a proper Corvette. It's trying to be a Ferrari. I'm like, okay. And since when was Ferrari a bad thing? There's a reason they're so expensive and desired and like very, very nice, right? Like, so I think it's going to happen. Platform-wise, I have no idea. I can't imagine they would retrofit this into, like this exact C8 with the mid-engine layout into an EV. It just wouldn't work well, right? Because like you've got the engine back there, but you wouldn't want to just put like a giant bank of batteries there. Usually like the best battery or best EV platforms are like a skateboard, where they have the battery pack down low to bring the center of gravity down. Motors, it is a much more simple thing, and they can be a little more modular, but I don't see them retrofitting this to it directly. So I have utterly no idea, but I wouldn't be too shocked if sort of pun, if there was an all-electric Corvette coming at some point. Now, if it's not going to be the two-door Corvette sports car, it could be in the form of an SUV, which brings me to the next possible Corvette that Chevy shouldn't do. It might do. I know the title of this video is Corvette variants that Chevrolet should make. This is one that I hope that they don't do, an SUV. There's been rumors, there's been talk of a SUV Corvette. I don't think they'll do a sedan because sedans just aren't as popular anymore. I mean, they've pulled away from making cars, conventional sedans and hatchbacks. So SUVs make money. And if you want to start seeing Corvette as its own sub-brand, building an SUV would make sense. The profits would probably be huge. You're tapping into that brand equity. And the number of examples we have of brands doing it, there's numerous. Porsche made the Cayenne. There was a lot of upset purist enthusiasts when the Cayenne first came out. Look at it now. Look at what has become, and look at what has allowed Porsche to do. When they build an SUV, you have money to fund exciting, crazy projects, the naturally aspirated sports cars that can be lower volume, maybe not turn the giant profit that keep the company running. Lamborghini with the Urus, Aston Martin with the DBX. There's rumors of McLaren doing one. Ferrari has the Purosangue, although they don't want you to call it an SUV. That's the FUV, the Ferrari utility vehicle. So Corvette, but then would they spin Corvette off as its own sub-brand? Could Corvette be its own independent brand in the Chevrolet portfolio? I don't think so. I thought I saw Mark Royce in an interview saying he wouldn't do that, but I don't recall exactly what that conversation was in that interview he did. But if you add a SUV to the Corvette lineup, I would be a little bit sad, but I would understand why they would do that, to continue funding it, and maybe we get more crazy engines like the LT6 and LT7, right? Ford did it with the Mustang and the Mach-E. They didn't electrify the Mustang. They made it into a crossover, and for better or worse, there's a lot of people buying Mach-Es, and they've done things to make them fun. Look at the Mach-E Rally. It's a off-road rally all-terrain Mustang-inspired SUV crossover thing, right? Who would have thought we'd get one of those? Whereas you see Dodge, they've kind of just gone headfirst into EV. We'll make the Charger, the Challenger's gone, it's all electric. And I don't think that's been very, very well received. So we'll see where Corvette goes with that, but it is absolutely a potential model variant that we may get. And I'll buck the trend with all the other ideas of things I would love to see. With this one, I wouldn't like to see, but it almost feels inevitable and it would make sense. This next one that came to mind for me is a crazy far stretch, and I really don't think that it would happen, but a super limited run manual transmission Z06. Now, for the C8 generation, they got rid of the manual completely. They are all dual clutch. So again, purists were probably upset. Not only did they move the engine from the front to the back, they got rid of our manual transmissions. To me, it's okay. It's moved the envelope of the C8 to another tier. A C8 Stingray with a Z51 package is such a tremendously capable car for the money. It feels more exotic. It looks more exotic, but at a just a regular man price point. And that's what the Corvette's always been, bringing the performance of higher tier, more exotic and expensive cars to the common man, people who can afford it, right? And even though the price point has climbed, I would say the C8 still brings that. But the loss of the manual, I'm over it at this point. There's other manual cars that are still available that you can buy. If you still want to stay in the GM family, get a Cadillac Blackwing. Those are still available with a manual transmission, and they are fantastic. But imagine a Z06 manual. Maybe lightweight, a little more aggressive lightweighting measures. Give us almost like a Porsche Touring, right? When they did 911R and then the GT3 Tourings, we get ourselves a Z06 Touring with a manual transmission, super low volume. I mean, that would be pretty cool. That engine paired to a manual transmission could be quite interesting. The engineering and mechanical logistics, control logistics probably would make that a non-starter, just not even realistic. I think pairing the Stingray V8 with a manual is more feasible, given the fact that this engine architecture has been paired with plenty of manual transmissions, the C8 Stingray and on, right? But it would be cool to see, and since we're just having fun speculating right now, a Z06 manual Touring, like super low volume, only the low wing aero package, that could be really, really cool. And it's a nice sweet spot where the ZR1 with a manual transmission would probably be a little bit terrifying. Like, I've driven horsepower cars close to that point, and like a McLaren P1 has rear-wheel drive, that kind of power. I don't need manual on top of that. It's already so ballistic. Oh my gosh, take a look at that sunset. That's just beautiful. I really hope the camera is capturing that. Wow. That was part of the idea of this. I was going for a drive, and I was like, you know what? I should just stick a camera to my face, and because it was a really beautiful sunset that day, and just do these like sunset drive conversation topics. I think it'll be a lot of fun, and also get to capture during the day what the car looks and feels like inside, and then at night. Obviously, they're not always going to be on beautiful roads like this. Sometimes I'll probably be back home in Michigan and just commuting along the gray, pothole-lined, frozen tundra known as Metro Detroit. Another potential idea, and again, there is precedence for this, and it's the Cadillac Corvette. Remember the XLR? That was essentially a Corvette in Cadillac skin. And I thought I remember rumors of this when the C8 generation first came out, and it would sit above the regular Corvette, much more luxurious, maybe tone it down a little in terms of the sharpness, but still give it plenty of performance capabilities, the Cadillac styling, make the interior even nicer. Although I will say this generation of Corvette interior is such a big step up, like the build quality, the leather, the fit and finish, especially in a 3LT model like this that's loaded up with heated cooled seats, heated steering wheel, all the digital stuff that you would want, the tech, the digital rear view camera and so forth. But you could still give it a Cadillac touch to it, more leather, maybe even a higher end sound system, but still keep that V8. That would be cool to see. A modern XLR, right? I don't know if they would keep the name, but I think there could be a buyer there. Cadillac clearly still is catering very much to enthusiasts, those who love the internal combustion engines. Take a look at the refreshed Blackwing. Take a look at the Escalade V, which is just utterly redonkulous. But at the same time, Cadillac is talking about their push towards electrification. You have the Optic, the Vistic, the Lyriq, the Escalade IQ. They're all kind of moving towards EV, and allegedly we're at the last generation of gas-powered Cadillac V-Series. There's a Lyriq V coming. So I don't know how that would fit into the lineup. If I had to guess the chance of that happening, I'd say maybe, let's call it 30% likelihood of a Cadillac Corvette coming out. The next thing is the LT2, this engine with a supercharger. So when the ZR1 was first being developed and rumored, they went through building one out with the supercharger, because the previous generation C7 ZR1 with the that's LT5, LT4, and LT5 is the bigger blower, was pretty impressive. 755 horsepower. I mean, it was, I think up to that point, the most powerful Corvette ever. But I believe the issue was packaging, because the height of that supercharger, you couldn't have the hardtop convertible stack folding down back there. They had that same issue with the C7. Look at the hood on a ZR1 versus the Z06. It's so much taller to accommodate that, and the cooling needs and so forth. So I don't think we're ever going to get a factory supercharged Corvette. That would have been what the ZR1 could have fit in, and the perks of that would have been a more known powertrain at that level of output. I mean, the LT4 and LT5 has been pushed to pretty high levels of power in the aftermarket. Obviously, Chevy themselves has had it from the factory. It still lives on in some form in the Cadillac with the black wing and the Escalade V. But I think packaging-wise, going mid-engine, that's just not going to happen. And they have the ridiculous twin-turbo V8 LT7 now. I mean, at what point do you need more than 1,064 horsepower out of a V8? I can't think of many instances where someone would go, that's not adequate, I need more power. So I would give that maybe a 0% shot. I don't think it's going to happen, point blank. There's no need for it in the hierarchy and lineup. What do you think? What do you think about all these possible Corvette variants? I'll run through all of them again. Let's see if I covered everything I had kind of brainstormed and came up with. So we have currently the Stingray, Z51 Stingray. We have Z06 E-Ray ZR1. Potential, I could see Zora, very, very likely. I could see Z-Ray being fun. We've got Grand Sport, almost, I would say very, very likely. Manual Z06, probably not. Electric Corvette, probably at some point. SUV Corvette, probably at some point. A supercharged base LT2, probably not. And any sort of manual transmission, kind of just as fun, just dream, right? It would be interesting. It would be really interesting to see. Now, the aftermarket hasn't, I don't think they've even bothered trying to do that kind of swap. Think about how many years it took for somebody to manual swap a second-gen R8/Huracan. There was one built, I think that was Underground Racing did one. That's kind of cool, the gated manual. Having owned a gated manual R8 before, they're fun, but these new dual clutches are also just so good. So good. Let me try to think, was there anything else on my list? SUV, the Cadillac version. I think that's all the ones I came up with. All these possible variants. Out of all of them I listed, which one would I love to see? Z-Ray. Z-Ray, man, like poor man's 918. Although Zora would be poor man's SF90, right? All-wheel drive twin turbo V8 hybrid, 1,000+ horsepower. I think at the end of the day, we're in such a good spot as Corvette enthusiasts. The purists of old, right? If you're used to all the old iterations of the Corvette, I know the new C8 doesn't look like the way it did, but I think the ethos of what this car is meant to be is still preserved, and it's bringing new people into the brand. I've liked Corvettes. Growing up in America, seeing them, my neighbor across the street growing up had a C6 Stingray and two 65 Corvettes, and every time he started it up, I would run to the window and just stare at it as his silver C8 or C6 Stingray started up. But I at no point thought about buying one. I drove C6s, C6 Z06, C7, but it took the C8 Z06 for me to go, yep, I want one of those. And I've sold my R8, my Shelby, to keep my Z06. Like, that's a high endorsement to me. And it's bringing different people, different buyers into the brand, keeping it fresh. The ZR1 is going to be a world beater. That's hypercar levels of performance, demolishing supercars multiple times the price point. When the Z06 was already keeping up with cars multiple times the price point, the ZR1 is just going to be utterly insane. I cannot wait to see what the markups are going to be like. 100 grand over sticker without a doubt. But we'll see where Corvette goes. So there you go. That's the topic I had for today. Sun is setting. It is beautiful as we're heading back towards Scottsdale out in Arizona. It's been I've had a super busy week. I was in LA from Friday until Wednesday, and then Wednesday I flew to Chicago, landed there Wednesday night. Thursday I did the Chicago Auto Show Media Day, and then that night turned around and flew back to Arizona. Was up until 3 a.m. Arizona time editing a video to put out, and today I've been out filming all day. Had a bit of an unfortunate incident. My DJI Osmo Pocket 3 gimbal was on the back of a car. We were filming rollers, and a suction cup failed, and it fell off and has suffered a ignominious fall. It looks like it's still sort of functioning, but I have the Care refresh, the DJI Care thing, where it's kind of like a insurance thing where you get a replacement for a deductible. You got a certain amount. So I'm glad I bought that, so I have to get that replaced. But plenty of very, very exciting things coming up. I'm very excited for some of the different projects I'm working on, new ideas I'm trying out. This kind of video I like. I have a whole list of different topics I would love to do. Everything ranging from career experiences I've had, some of the cool opportunities I've gotten to do, talk about going to Formula One races. 2 years ago, I got to go to the Miami Grand Prix, Silverstone, and Vegas. That was a lot of fun. It gave me a 1.5 second cameo in Drive to Survive, which is still kind of funny to me. Some of my other travel experiences, talking about different car things, business stuff. Would love to do one on what it was like to quit my job, how I came to the decision to leave my secure full-time job to try to be a self-employed business owner, content creator, some of the trials and tribulations, the challenges, the things to consider. And these videos are meant to be more casual, conversational. Maybe I'll start incorporating a friend in the passenger seat. Maybe I'll do a Q&A section on these too. I think Angel was right. This does just feel kind of like a podcast of sorts, but I wanted to theme it around the Sunset Drive point of view, going for a nice cruise. And with that, we will conclude this video. I'm going to head back into town. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Comment below which Corvette variant you would love to see. Thanks for watching.